Hello students. So today we will be doing the chapter 2.1, three questions written by Leo Tolstoy, and of course it will be explained by me. The chapter 3 questions actually is a parable about a king who wants to find answers to what according to him are the three most important questions in life. So, children, when we are talking about parable, I want to say that a parable is essentially a short story with a moral lesson that usually has human characters. So, this story of Leo Tolstoy is in the form of a parable. So, you have a value here in this lesson. So, basically, when we are reading the chapter, we will get to know more about it. So the next part, let us see the next slide. Now in the next slide, I have the glossary for you, the word meanings. First word which I have taken is ambush, a trap in which attackers wait in hiding for their target. Second is crouching, which means bending. Then we have dismounted, means got off or got down from something. Then we have frail, which means delicate. Then we have intently, which means very attentively. Then the next one is proclamation, which means announcement. Then we have the word idle, without any work. Spade, a tool used to dig the earth. Now the story starts. As I told you, the story is a parable. So here the king, the main parable which starts is that the king is very much inquisitive about the questions which he wanted, and he had announced in his kingdom that he would reward who would be able to reply all his questions. So he was very much inquisitive to know the answers, and mainly the questions mainly the questions which he wanted answers are: if he always knew the right time to begin everything. Secondly, he wanted answer for if he knew who were the right people to listen to and whom to avoid. And thirdly, he always knew what was the most important thing to do. So he wanted to know these three questions properly from anyone across the globe. He had made an announcement that if anyone could give him the correct answer, and he would be rewarding them greatly. So that was made an announcement. So children, I've tried to make a small picture book for you all to explain the story, three questions. It's a very interesting story, as I told you in the beginning, that it's a parable, it's a moral story, and the story is hidden in your work. So let us go across this picture book and learn about the story. So all the learned men now started coming to the king, but they all answered his questions differently. He was not at all happy with the answer which he got. Many of the learned men came. You can see all the learned men standing in his courtroom, and they were answering the questions which he wanted, but he was not happy with any of them. In reply to the first question, some said that to know the right for every action, one must draw up in advance a table of days, months, and years, and must live strictly according to it. Only thus, they said, could everything be done at its proper time. So, this was one of the answers given by the learned men who came across. Others declared that it was impossible to decide beforehand the right time for every action, but that not letting oneself be absorbed in idle pastimes. One should always attend to all that was going on and then do what was most needful. So the king actually was not happy with the answers these learned men were given. He still waited for some more good answers which would solve his problems. Others again said that, however attentive the king might be to what was going on, it was impossible for one man to decide correctly the right time for every action, but that he should have a council of wise men who would help him to fix the proper time for everything. So that was the last answer which the wise men gave to the king. And this did not satisfy the king at all. The king thought there could have been something more good answer to his three questions. So, in regard to that, the king decided that since all the answers were different, the king agreed with none of them and gave the reward to none. But still wishing to find the right answers to his questions, he decided to consult a hermit. He just was in deep thoughts. Then he came to know that there was a hermit who was widely renowned for his wisdom. Now he decided that he would go and visit the hermit, but the hermit lived in a wood which he never quitted, and he received none but common folk. So the king put on simple clothes and before reaching the hermit's cell, dismounted from his horse, leaving his bodyguard behind. He went alone. So the hermit never met any richly and worldly people. He always met the simple and down to earth people. He lived in the woods far away from the city and the hustle and bustle of the city life and enjoyed his life in the village. But the king had no other option. He needed the answers, so he decided to put on simple clothes and before reaching the hermit's cell, dismounted from his horse, leaving his bodyguard behind. He went alone. So, because of his answers, and he knew that the hermit would give him the answer. He was coming in his horse, but he decided that he will leave it everything and he will walk towards the hermit's place. So, being in spite of being a king, he decided to come as a common man to get his answers to the three questions. When the king approached, the hermit was digging in the grounds in front of his hut. Seeing the king, he greeted him and went on digging. The hermit was frail and weak, and each time he stuck his spade into the ground and turned a little earth, he breathed heavily. He was like he couldn't breathe properly because of his age and the work which he was doing. The king went up to him and said, I have come to you, wise hermit, to ask you answer to three questions. How can I learn to do the right thing at the right time? This is my first question. Second question which I want to know the answer is, who are the people I most need? And the third question is that to whom should I therefore pay more attention than to the rest? And what affairs are most important and need my first attention? So he directly told everything to the hermit, but the hermit was busy plowing the fields. Then the king was feeling very bad for the hermit. He said that let me help you because as it is you are not able to do the work properly. I will help you. So the hermit agreed and he indirectly gave it to the king. Now the king said that you are tired, said the king. Let me take the spade and walk for a while. 1 hour passed and another. The sun began to sink behind the trees, and the king at last stuck the spade into the ground and said, Sir, I came to you, wise man, for an answer to my questions. If you can give me none, tell me so, and I will return home. So he was very surprised that he had already helped the old man, but still the old man did not answer his questions. But then suddenly there was some distraction around. Here comes someone, said the hermit. Let's see, who is it? The man held his hands pressed against his stomach, and blood was flowing from under them. When he reached the king, he fell fainting on the ground, moaning feebly. So he just fainted and fell down. They could see a bleeding man, but when the man saw the king, he fainted in his arms. The king washed it as best as he could and bandaged it with his handkerchief with a towel the hermit had. When at last the blood ceased flowing, the man revived and asked for something to drink. The king brought fresh water and gave it to him. So the king was actually taking care of this wounded man, took care of his bleeding and stopped the bleeding, the blood coming out from the sore. So in the morning, when the king got up, and he was surprised to see that the man was telling him sorry. The king could really not understand why. The king told him that he had nothing to do to apologize that for. Why was he doing that sorry statement? The king could really not understand. Then the man revealed that he was an enemy of the king who wanted to take revenge on him for killing his brother and taking away his property. He intended to kill the king once he left the hermit's place. However, the king didn't return because the king was taking a lot of time and the king did not come back. So this man was waiting for him. The king's guards recognized him and wounded him, but he managed to escape and reach the hermit's place where the king saved his life. Indebted by the king's generosity, the man vowed to serve him all his life. So the man told that he was waiting for the king to come out from the hermit's home so that he could kill the king. But the king, in return, never thought of him as his enemy, served him well, and made him come out from his pains and his wounds. So he's told that to show his gratitude towards the king, he will serve him continuously. The king approached him and said, For the last time, I pray you to answer my questions, wise man. Then finally, do you not see, replied the hermit, if you had not pitied my weaknesses yesterday and had not dug these beds for me, but had gone your way, that man would have attacked you and would have repented of not having stayed with me. So the most important time was when you were digging the beds, and I was the most important man. And to do me good was your important business. So he gave his answers to the question which the king had asked. Excuse me. Afterwards, when the man ran to us, the most important time was when you were attending to him. That's the most important time. For if you had not bound up his wounds, he would have died without having made peace with you. So he was the most important man, and what you did for him was your most important business. Remember then, there is only one time that is important, and that is now. So the important time is now. It is the most important time because it is the only time when we have any power. The most necessary person is the one with whom you are. For no man knows whether he will ever have dealings with anyone else. And the most important affair is to do that person good, because for that purpose alone was men sent to life. So the three questions answer was in the work which the king did throughout the day, and the hermit had answered his questions very properly. The king was very happy. He went away satisfied, thanking the hermit for the answers which he gave to him. So I hope, children, you have understood the chapter. Do read the textbook so that you can get to know more about it.